Hello everyone, we're together again with the new version of COMOSYS. It's been an exciting year and we've done our best to improve the software in a way which makes life easier for you. This year, the emphasis has been on improving and refining the drawing creation and cleanup process. 2D drawings are the reason why we do 3D modeling, and everyone knows how much time is spent on cleaning up drawings. In this version, we have added many features which facilitate drawing creation and cleanup. There have also been additions on the modeling side, of course, and we will go through most of them during this webinar. So please take your cup of coffee and watch what we have prepared for you. There will be a chance to pose questions at the end, so please take your notes and ask them when the time comes. Those who are attending today will get the chance to receive an extended demo version, which they can use to evaluate the software. Also, I want to mention that for some of those who stay till the end, there will be a very special price offer if they decide to buy immediately. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, when you create assembly drawings, you have your main assembly views over there, and then it takes certain sections and creates single parts as well, depending on your choices. So for example, over here, it has created the single part views of P23, the front view, the top view, and the bottom view. And this will depend on your settings. For example, if I go into the settings of the assembly macro, go to the views over here, you see that the profile, single part profiles have got the top view, bottom view, front view, left view, right view options. And obviously you will have certain options on, but when they're complicated assemblies with all kinds of different parts in it, then a single setting might not be enough to create the best results in your drawing. So for example, after looking at the drawing, you might feel that as far as P23 is concerned in this assembly drawing, you really don't need the front view and the bottom view, and all you need is the top view, for example. And in cases like this, and because creating three views maybe unnecessarily cluttered the drawing. So what you can do is, so it was P23 if you remember. I'll just double click on the settings, go inside. And over here, we have added this part view creation filter. And over here, you have complete control over individual position numbers and which views you want to create. So for example, if I said P23 over here, I can say the first option I have is just say space N. N would mean do not draw it at all. N means none. No views required. So although it's creating three views now, but if you put it like that, then it will create single part views for all the other single parts. But when it comes to P23, it'll just skip it. So this could be useful in certain cases where you want to do it yourself when you're manually editing the drawing or doing some cleanup. But another option over here is you have these other than the N, you can write things like F. F is for front, T is for top, B is for bottom, L is for left, and R is for right. And you can do it in any order you want. You can, instead of FTBLR, you can say LRBFT or whatever. The order is not important, only those letters are important. So if I only wanted the top view, I would just say T over there. If I wanted the top and front views, I would say TF. If I wanted the front and bottom views, I could say FB or BF. The order doesn't matter. So in this case, since I only want the top view, I'll just put a T in there because I don't want the other two views to clutter my drawing unnecessarily. So P23, what I'm saying is that you can draw all the other single parts based on these settings over here. Whatever decisions the program is automatically making, I'm fine with those. But when it comes to P23, just please draw the top view only. And then if I execute the assembly macro again, you will see that it's a little bit cleaned up this time. And let's go in and find P23. So you see only the top view of the P23 position, part position has been drawn, and The front and bottom ones have been left out. And of course, you're not just limited to modifying the parameters for one part position. You could do it for as many part positions you want. So we've modified P23, but when we come over here, we see that P22 also has got 3 views. And really the bottom view, which shows the slotted holes like that, and the front view is all we need, let's say. That's what the decision is. And we don't want the top view. We only want the front and the bottom views for P22. So we'll just go back into the settings of our macro, of our assembly macro. And right next to the P23T decision, we give a space once again. I'm going to say P22, give a space, and this time we want the front and the bottom. So we say FB. We say OK, and we say execute. And when we do that, we see that the P22 has been reduced to the front view, and the bottom view and the third one has been removed. So we get a cleaner and cleaner drawing, depending on how we modify these single part drawing filters. Now, when we create an assembly drawing, COMOSYS, depending on the settings, obviously, COMOSYS can take certain sections along the assembly. So, for example, it's taken a section called EE over here, and it's taken a section, 2 sections, LL and MM over here, and C and K, and so on and so forth. And these will depend on whether if I go into the macro settings for the assembly macro, these depends on, you can completely turn off these sections as well. So for example, if I say don't take any sectional views over here, this one is an existing feature. If I just say don't take and say execute, then it'll basically not take any section at all along the assembly. Now, this might not be what you want. So let's turn them back on. You might not want this. You might want the sections to be taken, but you might not want a particular section to be taken. So while you want everything else, you don't want these L and M to be taken, for example, because you've given the dimensions over there and you don't really want to give any other, take any other section and create unnecessary clutter as far as your sections are concerned, or the rest of the drawing is concerned. So let's say you want to not take this section. Now, all you need to do is then check which part position the sections are for, and you can see that these 2 sections are related to P4, the part position P4. So you go into your assembly macro, and over here we've added this section creation filter, and you can turn this on, which means not. So you can say not P4, which means, okay, take your sections, but don't take a section for P4, right? So you can say okay to that and execute. Okay. And now you see that it's still taking the old sections over there, over there, over there. But the sections which it took over here, L and M for P4, have been removed. So this is a nice way of selectively, and you can so for example, this G section is for P15. The 2 P15s over there. This G section is for that. This I section is for the P21. So if I don't want either the P15 or the P21, both of them, I don't want the G and the I. So just remember P15 and P21. I'll just go into my macro settings, and I'll give a space P15 and P21. Say okay, execute the macro again, and you can see that both those sections have been removed, but the other sections are still there. So this is a very nice convenient feature which we've added, which allows you to selectively turn on and turn off certain sections. Now, a very nice feature which we've added is to do with the rotation of single part drawings. So for example, if you're creating a single part drawing of something like, this is the cage of a ladder, and these cages are folded plates, and their coordinate system is calculated automatically depending on the lengths of these sides, etc. So the longest side gets to be the main direction. But sometimes that longest side may not be the orthogonal side of this gauge. You want the drawing direction to be along this line and this line, but it will turn out to be maybe at 45 degrees or something. So if we create a drawing, for example, of this one, you see that the automatically created drawing has positioned that folded plate, that cage, like this at a 45-degree angle, because the definition points of that folded plate, the longest side is along that direction. So it's left us with very inconveniently dimensioned folded plate. Now, if we double click on this and go to our single part drawing, you see that we've added this part rotation feature over here. And we know that in this case, the angle of rotation is 45 degrees. So if we just give it a shift of 45 degrees, it could be minus 45 or 45. We just do that, okay, execute. And we see that immediately the drawing has been recreated based on a new coordinate system. So much cleaner dimensioning is attained as well. So this is a very nice feature to have whenever you see that something because of its own internal dimensions is using a different coordinate system for dimensioning than the one which you would have preferred. You can give it this angle rotation and create a new drawing based on that. And just like we can rotate views in the single part drawings to give a better dimensioning, we can also do the same in assembly drawings for particular single parts. So for example, if we wanted to rotate the drawing of this P4 part position by 90 degrees for whatever reason, in this case it's not required, but let's say we wanted to rotate this drawing by 90 degrees, just remember it's for the P4 part position. We could just basically go inside the macro, and inside the settings we could go to the part view rotations and say P4 will be rotated by 90 degrees, and we can continue for other part positions as well by giving a space and continuing. So just say P4 90 and execute the macro again, and this time the P4, as you can see on the screen now, has been rotated by 90 degrees and dimensioned accordingly. Now, sometimes it can happen that you have an assembly, and the assembly consists of many single parts, and most of the single parts are like standard single parts, and the dimensioning is fine and everything. But a few of the single parts are maybe like difficult things like cages of ladders, some curvature involved, some rounded sides involved, etc. And you want to manually dimension them, but you don't want to manually dimension everything else. So you only want to manually dimension a particular single part in the assembly. You don't want to turn off the dimensioning completely, but you want to only turn it off for a particular position, part position. So for example, let's say this is such a part, let's say it's P23, and we want to dimension it manually in this assembly drawing. But the others we are okay with. So we don't want the algorithm to automatically dimension P23. So what we've done is we've added this feature that you can go inside the macro, and if you go inside the settings, you will see that inside the dimensions tab, we have do not dimension this particular single parts viewports. So we can then go in and change that for the P23. So if we say P23, do not dimension P23, and we say OK, and we say execute, we will see that P23 will then subsequently not be dimensioned as shown. And now you can dimension it yourself. Of course, in this case, you wouldn't do it, but if it was a complicated part position, then you might want to do it. Now, if you have your in the assembly drawing settings, if you have your keep manual changes turned on, which basically means that if you make any manual changes to the assembly drawing, they will be preserved. Uh, we have added the feature that you are now able to add any view from the model, or take new sections, or take new details, and even later on, even if the assembly is updated, those manually taken sections or manually created views, etc., will be preserved. So, for example, if you have an assembly drawing and you actually wanted to put a 3D view of that assembly over here as well, so this assembly is B10. So what you would do is, for example, just to do a quick illustration, you would perhaps import the 3D view of the model down there. You could just double click on it. You would go to the filtering section. You would say, I don't want, maybe you don't want the grid. You would say, I want the actual assembly of B10, and say okay, like that. So you'll have only that assembly. You could change the draw style into something like that. You could remove those center lines, definition lines, and maybe change the scale to 1, or 1:10 or whatever. Apply and fit, and you've got this new view, which you can now, it's going to be a much better explanation of what this assembly is actually, so the people who are manufacturing it can actually see it. And then what you can easily do is you can select these pieces and you can annotate them, of course. We can say that you can create these annotations, you can create these annotations like that, and or do it in one go like that. But the idea is that now that you've created a 3D view of this assembly inside, even if there was a change in the assembly and maybe you added a stiffener, or you created a cut or something, and you had to redraw the thing through the assembly macro, this manually created 3D viewport would always be created with it now. Similarly, what this feature also allows you, for example, you could, just like you can add any number of views from the model, you can also take a detailed view or create your own sections, so that you could create your own manual sections over here. You could zoom in and create a section over here, or you could create a detailed view over there, and all of them would then be whatever you add in the form of a detail or a section or a model view will be preserved every time the drawing is updated. Now, one of our extremely popular features of COMOSYS is on-the-fly filtering, and this was primarily available on the modeling side, and now we've added or extended it to the drawing side as well, and that's really useful because instead of carefully selecting individual elements, so for example, if I'm zoomed into this viewport, if I wanted to do anything with the dimensions or annotations, for example, I would, for example, if I wanted to change the dimensions, I couldn't do a window selection. If I went like that, I would select all sorts of objects, but I only want the dimensions. So with on-the-fly filtering, what you can do is you can just go in and go do a window selection like that, and if you press enter, it will show you exactly what you've selected. It'll tell you that you've selected 15 profiles, 2 plates, and among other things, some dimensions as well over here. If you select the dimensions, it's going to classify them into horizontal and vertical. If there was aligned, it would show that as well. If there were some angular dimensions, etc., it would show that as well. So they'll be grouped together separately according to the type. But if I wanted to change all of them, for example, whether horizontal or vertical, I could just click on the stop over here, and then all 3 dimensions, this vertical dimension and these 2 horizontal dimensions have been selected, and I can display the property editor. and I can now make any changes to all of them. Um, for example, changing the units or the color or the font size or the arrow related parameters, etc. So this allows me to very quickly make these changes using on the fly filtering. Let's do it again. If you want to come over here, there is text over here, and text will show you, it could be manually created text, but it could also be annotation texts. So most of the text over here is annotation text. So you could select all the annotations in one single go, for example, and then make any modifications, for example, move them or change their style or font size or anything which you wanted to do. So very quick and easy way to change, or for example, if you wanted to uh, have these center lines, maybe they were turned off and you wanted to turn them on, or maybe they were turned on and you wanted to turn them off, for example, you could just select everything like this, press the enter button to get on the fly filtering, and because you have 15 profiles, they're all the same profile in this case, but doesn't matter. You could select all of them, say display property editor, and now you could make the changes whether you want to see the definition line or the gravity line or the center line or whatever, or maybe make changes to the line thicknesses, etc. So a very convenient way of working with on the fly filtering. Now, with this version, we've also added a slight variation to this, and that is, let's say I want to make changes to all the dimensions in all of these, because there are multiple viewports over here, right? Maybe dozens of viewports over here. Now, the thing is that if I can either do this, I can either go in, do a selection like that, and then zoom in over here, press Control, do a selection like that, zoom in over here, do a selection like that, and keep going until I select everything, and then I press enter, and then I choose the dimensions and I make my modifications. But if I zoom out and if I do a window selection of the entire drawing, now the problem is that it selects the viewports and not the stuff which is inside the viewports, because the viewports have a preference in window selection. So I still don't get exactly what I want. Now, to override this behavior, we have added this feature of pressing the A key, A for alpha key, while you're doing the window selection. So I'll just keep the A key pressed, and I'll do the same window selection which I did a while ago. And this time the viewports lose their priority, and everything inside the viewports is selected. And now if I want to change something to do with all the dimensions which I'm seeing over there, or all the annotations or anything, all I need to do is just press enter, so that to run the on the fly filter, go to dimensions, whether it's all the dimensions, the linear ones or horizontal ones or general ones, I can select all of them, display the property editor, make my changes, and I'm good to go. So this is a very convenient and fast way of quickly making modifications to your drawings. Now, COMOSYS users are very familiar with this dialog box, which is basically the dialog box of assembly drawing settings and prefixes. So the way the assembly drawings have been created historically in COMOSYS, and even now you can create them like this, is that we actually create a list of settings over here. You can create as many as you want. You already know that by right-clicking and creating a new row and giving a new name for the setting. And then you associate the assembly prefixes, whichever ones you want, with any one of those settings on the left. So then when you create a drawing, automatically COMOSYS will check the assembly prefix and then find the corresponding setting, and it will use that setting for the creation of the drawing. Now, in this version of COMOSYS, we have added a new, just let me go into the default over this just to show you. You know that the inside of the settings looks like this. So you have a general tab in which you can put your settings for your page sizes and your assembly scales, and whether you want to include single parts or not and stuff like that. And in the view section, you have control over what views are created and how they're created, and what the dimensioning will look like, and what the annotations, etc., will look like, and what the layout information would be. But we've added a new place over here for presets. Now, these presets are very similar to the settings which we just talked about, which are used to match, where you basically match a setting with an assembly prefix. So they're basically exactly the same, but these are used, these presets which you can create. So once you write, for example, make your changes in these tabs, you can come to this preset page now and give say save and give it a new name. And that preset or that setting will be saved as a separate list over here. So here is a list of some presets which I've created. And this list is not the same as the settings which we had in the previous one. So this list, which you're seeing over here, this list of presets, is not the same as this list of settings, although their contents are of the same type. But this is a new set of presets which you can create. Now, the reasons why we have allowed you to create this new set is, which is something which we'll talk about later, is that we now COMOSYS will offer the ability to through a drawing creation wizard, where you will be able to either use the existing method in which assembly prefixes are matched to settings and the drawings are created automatically, or you will have complete control over which assembly is drawn according to which preset. So you might have 5 columns each drawn with a different, all with the prefix of CL, for example, but each drawn according to a different preset. So, for example, you could say that the larger columns are drawn according to this, and the smaller columns are drawn according. You could change. We will discuss that later when I'll explain the new drawing creation wizard. But at this point, I only want to say that you now have the ability to create presets. Just make your setting, come to the presets page, just say save and give it a name, and all these settings will then be available in the drawing creation wizard, which we will talk about later. Now, steel assembly drawings typically don't contain generic solids. I mean, typically you would have profiles and plates, etc. But in this version, we have quite generalized the assembly drawing settings to include generic solids as well. And when we say generic solids, you can basically add any kind of a solid to an assembly. And if you see over here in the assembly drawing settings, we have added this generic solid annotation line over here. And if you see, there's placement just like we had before, and there are fields for assembly and fields for the parts and the drawing settings. So, for example, if I were to open the fields section, you see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different types of 6 different disciplines, one could say, of generic solids. You could add your own generic solids and add them to any one of these disciplines. You already have basic design, concrete, electrical, mechanical, parametric objects, structural steel, etc. You could, for example, create your own generic solids and add them to the structural steel list, which already exists. Now, once you have this list, for example, you could you can then choose. So, for example, if I come to the structural steel one, and if I go to cladding is a generic solid object in structural steel. If I double click on that, you see that you get your built-in annotations as well as your custom annotations. So you can choose from any of these built-in annotations which are part of the cladding annotation settings, or you could add your own custom annotations, and you could set that, apply and close. And then you could continue with the fields. So a single assembly might have a cladding in it, might have a parametric parametric object inside the same assembly. It might have some structural steel object, other structure like a stud or something on it as well. I mean, the combinations can be endless. So you could just, all you would need to do is just make your setting for the annotation field, and once you create your drawing, all the generic solids inside that assembly will be annotated according to your settings. So this is a very powerful improvement we've done this time, which will generalize your ability to create complicated assemblies. Another feature which we have added on the drawing side is the tail dimension option. Previously, we had many different types of dimensions, but in some countries, the tail dimension option is used. So, for example, if you were to zoom in, it's basically linked to a reference point, and then the tail dimension looks like this. It continues to other points like that, like that. So it basically shows you, instead of making this creating lines along that throughout the dimension, it just creates a small line and a number, like you can see on the screen right now, and that leaves a very clean drawing output in the overall scheme of things. So we've added this. The way to use it is very simple. You can convert any existing dimension into a tail dimension if you wanted to. Instead of calling it relative on segment, all you need to do is convert it into a tail dimension and just press OK. And that dimension now is turned into a relative tail dimension. So very easy to use and very useful. Now, one very nice feature which has been added in this version is the orientation side of something which you're annotating. For example, this particular stiffener, if you look at the top view, so for example, this one is on this side and there's nothing on the back side of that. So if we zoom in on that, we can see that we can get this type of an annotation saying near side. When you're looking at this beam from this view, this NS would mean you're looking at it from the near side. It's not on the other side of the beam. Now the same annotation can be used to predict something which is on the far side as well, or it could also be used to predict something which is exactly on the center line of the beam. So using this feature, you can now inside the annotation also show the orientation of how the part lies in accordance with that particular view. Now, to use this feature, you would need to first go to the Tools menu and go to the Custom Annotation Catalog. And if you go inside, you will have to create a custom annotation. So we've already done that over here just to show you. You'll need to create a custom annotation in which you will put your whatever part prefix or the prefix field and the actual part number field, and you will need to put this part orientation field, which is showing N or S as a default value, but basically you will use the part orientation field, and once you put it over there, and then you use this particular annotation to annotate your parts, it will automatically show either as near side or as far side or as on the center. Another feature which helps in drawing cleanup and producing nice drawings is this ability to now group multiple annotations into a single annotation. So at this point, there are two stiffeners on both sides. So if you go down over here, you can see there's one at the front and one at the back, P56, both of them. But when they're annotated together from the front view, instead of getting two annotations saying P56 at the same point, you can group them together saying something like this. It could be 3 or 4, and it would say multiplied by 3 or 4. And what you need to do for that is to, before you annotate, you need to set up the annotation in such a way that you have this feature turned on, merged annotations feature turned on. And if this is turned on, then whatever you select, it's going to first merge them together if the geometry allows for that, and combine them into a single annotation. So that's a very useful feature to have. Another nice feature which we've added in this version is the ability to place elevation symbols in your assembly drawings. If you remember previously in the assembly drawing settings, there were these tabs, and in the annotation and display settings tabs, we had several options. We've added the generic solid annotation, but we've also added the level indicator. This one is the one which will create a level symbol in your assembly drawings. So depending on which assembly is being drawn, it will show the level of that assembly. If that assembly appears in at multiple levels in your model, then it will, instead of showing a simple number, it will say something like the elevation varies across the model. So it's a nice feature to have, in which the manufacturers know exactly where the assembly exists in the model. Now, when we're dimensioning and cleaning up or annotating drawings manually, we run into situations where different viewports have are very similar to each other. So, for example, this over here we see this viewport which has been dimensioned, and certain sections have been taken as well. And there's the corresponding viewport somewhere else which hasn't been dimensioned yet, and the sections have not been taken. And in this case, let me just show you that there's a section taken over here, which is section AA. And if I come down over here, this is section AA, and then within section AA itself, it contains another section called CC. So the original viewport contains section AA, and then the created section AA then includes another section within itself, CC. Now you have a similar situation which you want to do over here, which hasn't been dimensioned as yet. So what you can do is very easily in this version of COMOSYS, you can just go and select everything like that. Press enter, says you want to select all the dimensions. So all the dimensions are selected, and let's say you wanted to copy this section AA as well, so you could press the control key, select that. You could select other ones as well, as or all the sections of the view, but let's say you only wanted to select a particular one. So you've got the dimension selected and the section AA selected. Now if I go to over here at the top, it says copy to clipboard, and when I click on that, it asks for a reference point. And I'm going to show the bottom left corner of the space plate. I just show that. And now, since a very similar situation exists in this target viewport, I can just say paste from clipboard and show the same reference point over here. And immediately all those dimensions which were created in the original one are also created over here. And if you notice, that section which was AA has also been taken as DD. And where is that? They're over here. So if you go into that DD, you will see that that section DD also has this section which was taken from the AA section called EE in this case. So you have exactly the same situation. CC is over here, AA is over here, and the two can now be simply brought inside your drawing. And very quickly you have the ability of this kind of recursive copying between viewports. Had this CC taken another section over here, that too would have been created just by copying the original AA into the target location. Now, sometimes manufacturers or erectors would like to see, for example, this is an assembly. Let me just select the assembly and say show only. So this is what the assembly looks like, and this is how it's going to be drawn. These are fin plates with holes. Let me turn everything back on. So you see that these these fin plates are connected to this beam over there, and there's a side for the connection. So this beam is coming from that side, that beam is coming from that. This is the bolts are there, and what manufacturers and erectors like to see in the drawings, in the assembly drawings, is how the side from which the secondary part is approaching that fin plate. And so, for example, this is the drawing of that beam, and here are some. This is the fin plate, and they would like to see that the beam is coming from this side, or the side from which the bolts are going to come at. And this version of COMOSYS, what we've done is we've added a feature in the assembly drawing settings. So first of all, let me show you the assembly drawing settings. The assembly drawing setting, if you go inside, you have this option of, let me see where this is. Yes, the draw bolt connecting side symbols. If you turn this on, you can select a file and you can select a symbol. As you know, we have a symbols file in COMOSYS, which is described elsewhere. You can select that symbol, and then the COMOSYS, when it's creating the assembly drawing, will automatically create the symbol from there. Now you can also turn it off, turn it on and off from here, but you can also actually turn it on and off from directly within the drawing itself. So let's say you've already created the drawing and you wanted to turn it on. For example, for this one, you could just double click on the viewport and go to your filtering and or rather detailing. And over here you have this option of draw bolt connecting side marks as well. For each viewport you can turn it on and off. So if you turn it on, you can choose the file from which you want to get the symbol. And let's say it could be any one of those files which you've created. And then you could choose the symbol like that. And once you choose the symbol in the side, then COMOSYS will, if you just turn it on, COMOSYS will simply create that symbol showing the side from which the secondary is going to approach. You can modify the symbol to whatever way you want it to look, but it's going to basically make your symbols appear next to the bolts to show the connecting sides. Previously in COMOSYS, we could have as many drawings open at the same time. You could go to your drawings manager and you could open up as many drawings as you wanted. So right now, and you could see which ones are open. So you have this list of open drawings at the bottom. And but at one point in time, you could only see one of them. So right now I'm looking at CE001. If I double clicked on this one, I could see the other one. Then I need to come back to this one. Now, with this version of COMOSYS, we have added the ability to look at two drawings at the same time, because sometimes you want to copy something from the other and you want to see both of them in front of you. So for that, all you need to do is just come to this top left corner over here, and you have this option of selecting two drawings, either vertically or horizontally tiled. So let me do a vertical tiling. And you can see that you can see one drawing over here, and you can come to this one and you can get one drawing from here. And then if you want, you could zoom in and copy something from here, for example, and paste it over here. So you've got the ability now to look at two drawings at the same time, which can be quite convenient if you're doing a lot of copying and pasting between drawings. A minor feature which we have added is related to dimensioning, the way the dimensions are drawn, especially when the space between the dimension is very small for the first. So let me create a horizontal dimension. So let's say I start from here and I just do a little dimension, and then I do a slightly longer one, then I do another small one like that, and then I do go like that. When I place the dimension previously, there would be, even in this first and last sections, there would be two arrows, just like in the middle section, you see an arrow like that and an arrow like that. It would be the same over here. And those two arrows would sometimes, this region is so small that the two arrows would basically merge into one. So in this version, we have changed it for the first and the last dimensions. If they're small, if they have enough space, then it'll behave the same way. But if they don't, then it'll just convert the arrow into something like this from the outside, and then that'll be a cleaner way of showing the dimension. Another small feature which we have added this time is a new annotation style. So, for example, this is what we had previously. And you could do an annotation like this, in which there was an arrowhead and come down and there's a line and there's a text written on top of it. In the new one, if you can just change it by double clicking it, or you can, when you're creating the annotation, you can also set these settings, and it will be created accordingly. We have this new option over here in which you have different styles. So this was what you see on the screen as style 1, but we've added this style 2, in which the text basically comes to the side. Instead of being on top of the line, it comes on the side. And of course, you can play around with the different options of the arrowheads. But basically, this is something which was requested by some customers, and we've added that. Now, there could be situations where you have a welding annotation and there's a text or something else which is very close to it, and you want to, instead of having a straight leg from this point onwards pointing to wherever the weld is, you want to like break it into two parts, so you basically go around that obstacle. Now, to do that, in this version we've introduced this multiple legs option, in which you can just select the welding symbol, and if you select that, you will see a little square appears in this, and then you can actually come over that and select it. And once it's selected, you can move it around like this and take it to another point. And once that is done, you can actually each leg has now a middle point which you can. So if you select it again, you can now select this particular point and break that into multiple legs as well. So you can basically break the welding symbol into multiple legs from that point onwards. Now, one very important feature which was missing in previous versions of COMOSYS was the drawing side undo feature. And many of our clients were requesting this because we have the undo, the full unlimited undo on the modeling side. But in the drawing side, when you do anything, for example, if you accidentally select this annotation and delete it, there was no undo and you have to recreate it again. Now you can just, all you need to do is either click on this button over here or just press Ctrl Z and the annotation will reappear. The same would hold if you're, let's say you're moving some dimensions, repositioning them, just pressing Ctrl Z will bring them back. The same would hold for selecting a viewport, moving it anywhere you want. Let's say you select several viewports, you move them outside the drawing. If you press Ctrl Z, they will be brought back. If you accidentally select some viewports and you delete them, and they're gone now, you just press Ctrl Z, they will come back. Now the same holds for, you can go between drawings as well. So for example, let me select a few tables over here and delete them, and select the let's select a few viewports over here and delete them as well. Then I can zoom in and maybe make some changes to the annotations and the dimensions like that. Now let's say after this point I go to the other drawing over here and I select a few of the tables and I delete them, and I select a few viewports and I delete them, and I also make a few changes with the annotations, with the dimensions, etc. Now when you're like this, and I go back to this drawing and I press Ctrl Z, you'll see that the changes which I've made are coming back in this right hand side drawing. Now if I keep pressing Ctrl Z, I will keep getting my right hand side drawing, but if this one is not being undone because this one has lost focus at the moment. To get to undo the things I did on this side of the drawing, I'll have to click on this drawing or regain the focus for that drawing and now press Ctrl Z. Now you will see that the changes which I made are coming back. So a very important, very useful feature. It's unlimited undo. You can basically delete anything you want. You can delete entire drawings as well. So for example, if you accidentally went to the drawing manager and selected a particular drawing and actually deleted it, there is a way to recover, although it's not the same as the normal undo, but there is a way to recover those drawings now, and in fact recover any drawings you might have deleted in the past as well. So that is a more of a drawing backup related restore feature. But this one, what I'm talking about over here, is basically the when you have a drawing open, it will allow you to undo all actions which you can take inside a drawing. These include creating and deleting and modifying dimensions, creating, deleting, modifying annotations, adding title blocks, adding tables, adding viewports, modifying viewports, changing the filters in viewports. Basically, anything you do when you're editing a drawing, can be undone and redone in this new version of COMOSYS. So very useful, very powerful, and we hope you will enjoy it. Now, in this version of COMOSYS, what we've done is we've added a table. This is the layout manager, and in the layout manager, you have a list of all your available tables which you can use. Some of these are legacy tables. Some of these you can create yourself by using the template editor, and some of them are built-in tables, so which are a little more complicated and not easy to do using the template editor. We've added a built-in table in this version, which is called bill of material, and this is more focused towards the American market. This bill of material table is a table which you can use in your assembly drawings. And if you want to, I'll just show you the format. If you want to use it, you will need to include it in your layout and your page size, which you're using, and just include it wherever you want to place it in your sheet, and then COMOSYS will create the table. And if you want to know what this table looks like in your drawing, well, this is what it looks like. You can put in a job number. You can have a sheet number for the assembly drawing, and the specific thing about this particular table is that it does numbering based on the sheet itself. So your part marks, whatever the numbering part marks are kind of matched or matched to a local sheet numbering. As you can see over here, the sheet number is 1000 and the part marks have been changed to A1000, D1000, C1000, D1000, etc. And the length of the profiles or plates, depending on the case, is divided into two separate columns of feet and inches, and there's a material column. So if this particular and there's one specific thing about this, that if the quantity of the main beam is of the main assembly is 1, then it specifically says ONE, writes down the letter the word 1. Otherwise, it just gives the number. So this is a useful table which you can use, especially for the American market. Now, manufacturers sometimes have large inventories of standardized parts, which they have stored away in their warehouses. And whenever they start a new model or they're doing modeling of a large building, they want to use as much as possible these standard parts, because it gives them the advantage of they're already cut, they're already ready, and they can be used directly to facilitate many things. Now, this requires a special numbering process. It requires that the software should know what standard parts are available in the inventory, and then in the full model, whenever the exact same geometry is used, instead of giving it the number, its own number in that model, it should give it the same number as the standard parts number which they have in the inventory. So in that case, for example, something could become so this could be a standard part 3, this could be a standard part 4, and when you're doing the full numbering of the actual model, if the geometry turns out to be the same as this one, it's going to get the same number as the standard parts model. Now, for this, there's a way to do this in COMOSYS, and what you do is you create your standard parts model. This is the model which will have all the parts which you have in your inventory, and you will give them the whatever prefixes you want. For example, you can call it standard part something or whatever prefix you want in the numbering, and you will do the numbering. So you will go to your numbering command and you will perform the numbering. And once the numbering has been done, then all these standard parts will get their number. And then what you need to do is you go to the advanced tab. And in this advanced tab, there's a button called create the NBI file. This is the numbering information file for this particular model. Now, when you click on this button, an NBI file will be created for this entire model, for the standard parts model. And where will this be? Where can you find this file? If you just go to your model directory by clicking on this icon, this takes you to the model directory. Here you have a subdirectory called numbering data. And in this numbering data directory, you will see that NBI file, the numbering information file. Now, this is the one which is going to be used. This file is going to be used by the other model, which will be the actual model of the building. So when you go back, for example, to the actual model, let me just save this. When you go back to the actual model which you're doing, and you want that particular model to be numbered if it finds a part which is the same as one of the parts in the standard parts model, you want this part to get that number. And to do that, when you go to the numbering over here, whenever you're doing the numbering, you go to the same advanced tab, and this time you say use standard part numbering. You turn this on, and then you go inside by clicking on this particular thing, and you show it that. Let's standard parts model. Let's see where it is. Yeah, so this is the one in the numbering data file. You will show it this NBI file like this. And now that you've shown it this file, and now when you do the numbering, it will compare all these parts to the parts in that standard model. And if they turn out to be the same, it will give them the same number. This is something which manufacturers use a lot when they have large inventories, and we've added this option now in this version of COMOSYS as well. Now I will talk about assembly drawings. And in this version, we have added a new way of creating assembly drawings, and it's very useful. Now, to explain that, before explaining that rather, I will just recall the existing way which you're all used to of creating assembly drawings. Now, as you know, if you go to the drawing settings, and if you go to the assembly drawing settings, we get this dialog box. And this dialog box basically allows you to this is what we had in previous versions as well. This is what allows you to create different settings for assembly drawings. So you can have a assembly setting called whatever you want, details of braces, details of columns, or details of beams, and this and that. And then what you do is you associate assembly prefixes with these settings on the right hand side over here. So you create your settings on the left hand side, and then you associate your assembly prefixes. So for example, any assembly with a prefix of VB or a prefix of HB or a prefix of SP will be drawn with the setting called detail of braces, which is this one over here. So whatever these settings are, they will be used to create these the assemblies with these prefixes. The assemblies with the prefixes of B or BE will use this setting. So this is the way we currently we used to handle in previous versions. We still do in this version as well. But this is the way we basically the assembly drawings are created according to the prefix of the assembly. Now in this version, what we've done is, so these on the left hand side, we have the settings. So we can have as many settings as we want. But in this version, what we've done is that if you just click on any one of those, it doesn't matter. You go inside that setting. You can modify that setting, bring it to change that setting basically. And over here, we've created a new this ability to create further presets. So while these were also presets, which were used, these were also settings or settings, basically, let's call them, which were used according to the assembly prefix. Over here, we've allowed you to create further settings and give them names. So you can make any changes in these in the view tab or in the dimensions tab or in the annotations tab or in the general tab, etc. And then give it a name and say save. And this will be a separate list of settings. This list of settings is what we call the new assembly drawing presets. So we've got two sets of settings, let's say. One which will be used if we use the old system, which is based on the prefix of the assembly. And then there is this new system which will use these presets. And just keep that in mind because I'm going to explain that in a second. Now, the reason we've given this new system of creating assembly drawings is to basically allow the user a lot more flexibility when they're creating the drawings. And the way it works is, so normally you would, in previous versions, and that's still possible, you would select some things, select some assemblies and parts and whatever. You would right click and you would go to create drawings and you would say assembly drawings. We've added this by prefix because this is just to basically tell you that this is the old system in which assembly drawings were created by using the prefixes. But now we have this other option in which says it's a drawing creation wizard. It's first of all not just related to assembly drawings, it's also related to part drawings. But this will allow us a lot more flexibility right at the last point when just before creating the drawings. So let's do that. I've done a selection on the screen, as you can see. I just did you can do any kind of selection which you want. Right click, go to your create drawings, and click on this button over here. When you do that, you will see. Let me go back from over here. You will see this new dialog box which we created, which is basically what we call a drawing creation wizard. What this is doing is that it is first of all listing everything which I have selected. So it's giving me a preview of the assemblies and the parts which I have selected on the screen. Now, if you remember previously, if I've selected an assembly called KR, there are several assemblies with the prefix of KR over here, for example. So this column over here basically shows you. So let me explain first. The type column says that I've selected the A means assembly. If I drill down, if I go down, there'll come a point when it'll pass the assemblies and start going into parts. So let me just go further down like that. And you see after a certain time, that turns into a P, which means I've selected many parts as well. So I've selected many parts, I've selected many assemblies. If I want, first of all, I can click on this and say, don't show me the parts. And in that case, only the assemblies will be shown. The parts will be filtered out. Or I could show the parts again and show them all, or just only show the parts. So I've got some filtering options over here. Now, what it tells me is in this column, you see the state, which means not drawn, basically means that the drawing of this assembly has not been created yet. So if accidentally I select something which I've already drawn, it's going to show me that this one, the drawing already exists. You can update it, you can delete it and redo it, but it's just going to give you an update so that you are aware of that. And in this column, you basically see the assembly prefixes, the assembly marks, and the part marks. So what this allows you to do is, for example, maybe my KR assemblies by default would be done. So this on the right hand side in this column, you see the settings are currently by prefix, which is the old system. By prefix. So it's basically going to use that single setting. But what now I can do is I can say, okay, I want these 3 KRs to be not by prefix, but if I click on that, I can say one of those, the other presets which I just showed you, the second set, I can say, no, I draw these KRs using this preset and draw these remaining KRs, these 4, by using some other preset, let's say this one. So I could create certain presets, drawing presets, and then at the last minute, just before creation of the drawing, I could override the actual settings which should be. I could keep them as by prefix, which was the older version, which still exists, but I could actually fine tune the settings, which it's also giving me information, if you note, by the way, about the weight of each of these assemblies. So for example, I could say, well, this one looks like this is a heavy assembly. It's about 5 tons. And these ones are pretty light. There's about 100 kilos or whatever. So I could even select, for example, a heavier assembly. It's got 87 pieces in it. This assembly is just about 140 kilos, got 7 pieces in it. So this is a big assembly. I could maybe I want a different prefix for this one. I could just choose maybe whatever and just changing it over there. What I'm saying is that it gives you information on what you selected, information on what the weight is, how many pieces that assembly includes, and then allows you to choose um, a preset for that, the other set of presets, which I just showed you a while ago. Now, so this gives me a lot of flexibility at the last moment, just before so then I can actually go ahead and select these and say actually create drawings from here. And then those drawings will be created according to these presets, according to whatever information I've just seen. And one thing I can do, which is very useful, is what we call the preset overrides. And what that means is that although I've created those presets, because it's some parameters are very commonly changed from one project to another. These would include things like should I include my single parts in the assembly or not, or what the scale of the assemblies should be, or what dimension units, like do I want imperial units or do I want SI units, or maybe do I want to put multiple assemblies in a single drawing and stuff like that. So if you think about all these things which are very commonly changed from project to project, you will see that in order to accommodate all combinations of these, you would literally need to create dozens and dozens of presets, which gets tiring after a while. So what we have is over here, we can easily say that, okay, these are the presets which I've created in general, but for this creation, I want you to override so this, obviously these presets will have some page size, but in my particular project, I don't want you to use whatever page size I've given in those presets, but just override that and use B0 size, page size. So I have a certain page size mentioned in these, but my page size preferences keep changing from project to project. So I don't want to keep adding to those presets every single time for every different page size. I've got the generals because there are hundreds of settings in there, but the page size one is the one which keeps changing. So I can, at the last minute, just override that. So whatever you find in these presets, just override that page size by this one. Do I want to create the single parts? Although that will say in those settings, the settings will say that, but let's say I've created them with the option of don't create single parts. At the last minute, I can say yes, do create the single parts. Whatever these presets say, you just go ahead and create the single parts. Similarly, sometimes you have very complicated assemblies in which you don't want to dimension them because the automatic dimensioning is not according to your liking. So you want to create the drawings as empty drawings without dimensions, just annotations, and then you want to dimension them yourself. So you say, okay, create these according to these settings, but these settings will tell you to create dimensions as well, but I don't want you to create dimensions. So you can override these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 regularly changed commonly from project to project. For example, these settings would all be done saying that the dimensions would be done using the SI units. But in this particular project, I want to use imperial units. So I'll just say, okay, although whatever those settings are saying, go to when it comes to dimensioning, use imperial units. So I've got these overrides as well. So I've got these settings. First of all, I can, it doesn't need to be done according to the prefix only. I can say these 3 KRs according to this bigger one according to that, then these 4 according to this. And then whatever they say, just override these 6 the way I want them to be overridden. And similarly, I can go down and see the parts as well. And the parts also have their factory defaults. But I can now modify them according to the part presets as well. Single parts also have now their own presets, just like the assembly ones do. So this is a very nice feature to have because it really facilitates the creation of assembly drawings and part drawings. It's like a wizard, which at the last minute gives you a lot of flexibility. You just select, and it also tells you whether the drawing exists or not. It tells you how big the assembly is. It allows you to change to select different prefixes. It allows you to overwrite 6 very important parameters within whatever those presets might have inside. And it allows you to sort stuff. So you could, when you click on this, it will sort according to the assembly. When you click on this, it's going to sort according to the type. If you click on the weight, it's going to sort according to the weight. So very convenient way, very useful way, and we believe that our customers will enjoy creating assembly drawings a lot more with this very flexible option which we've created. One little thing which I forgot to mention was this prefix filter at the top. So you can have many prefixes in your selection. So let's say I've got some KUs in there. So what you can easily do is if you come over here at the top and you say KU, it's going to filter out only the KUs from that whatever selection that you have. So you can see there are lots of KUs in there. This you can bring it back to 0 and it's going to bring you the original list. What you could also do is you could say, for example, KR is going to filter out the KRs, but then you could also say KU. Then only the KRs and the KUs together will be filtered out. And if you go down, you see the KRs and then you see the KUs. If you see them some KUs and KRs together, you can just go and sort according to that. So the KUs will come first. They'll be together, so you can maybe do some change some settings for only the KUs. And then if you go down, then you get to the KRs and you can make your settings accordingly. So very convenient, very nice way to create your assembly drawings.